The Tennessee Titans desperately need help at wide receiver, and according to a recent report, they could be looking to trade up to get one of the top talents in the draft. I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. But on today's show, we are going to be continuing the 2025 Locked On Titans NFL Draft Preview Series, and we're going to be talking about wide receivers. We're going to talk about the top receivers in the draft and some guys who the Titans could be potentially eyeing for a trade up. Also, we're going to talk about day 2 fits for the Titans, where I think they more realistically will be grabbing a wide receiver in this draft. And we'll talk about some options on the final day of the draft who may not be exactly what Titans fans are looking for, but could play a role on the team. Before we dive into it, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Again, it's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one, because I'm going through every position on our way to the NFL draft. The draft is going to happen in less than 2 weeks. You want to stay as informed as possible. You can do it here with the Locked On Titans podcast. But again, we got a report from ESPN's Matt Miller in a recent draft intel article on ESPN. And he said, quote, all signs point to Cam Ward being the number 1 pick. So the thing to watch is, what will the Titans do on day 2? They're lacking a 3rd-round pick due to the L'Jarius Sneed trade last offseason and need a receiver to complement Calvin Ridley. Expect Tennessee to be aggressive in adding a wideout, possibly with a trade up from number 35 to target a player such as Emeka Egbuka or Luther Burden. Folks, I know that the Tennessee Titans need as many draft picks as possible, but you know what the Tennessee Titans really need? Talent. And if you look at the wide receiver group right now, and then you look at the edge group, and you say, would you rather have Luther Burden and then an edge later on in the draft? Or would you rather stick and pick at 35 and go with like Luther Burden and then, a receiver late like a Nick Nash or something? Like, if the Titans were to do this, I think it would take 35 and I think it would take 103. That's what I think would take for the Titans to move up and make this move. I think it'd probably be 35, 103, and then a future pick in next year's draft. And I know that that is the opposite of, hey, we need to stack picks. But in my opinion, when you look at the tier 1 wide receivers in this draft class, the best wide receivers in this draft class, you have Tetaroa McMillan, T-Mac from Arizona, 6'4", 219 pounds. He's the big-bodied X receiver with great route running, size, speed, playmaking ability. He can pluck the ball out of the air, yards after catch. Terrible against press coverage. Does not play as physical as a 6'4", 219-pound player would. Doesn't have elite acceleration, but I think he's going to be a guy who goes, at minimum in the top 15. So I don't think he's even going to be an option for the Titans in a trade up. Now, after that, the next 3 wide receivers that are in tier 1, my number 2 wide receiver is Luther Burden. Missouri, 6 foot, 206. He is a dynamic yards after catch slot wide receiver who I think could also maybe play some Z wide receiver in the future. Explosive. He's got a compact running back body, and he runs like a running back when he gets the ball in his hands. He is a yards after catch demon, no doubt about it. Great tracking skills on deep balls and slot fades. He has great ball skills to go win. Look, he's 6 foot, 206. He's not a guy who's going to be like, jumping over top of people and mossing people. But for a guy his size, he has great ball skills, can pluck the ball out of the air. Look, his production took a big dip from 2023 to 2024. But in my opinion, that was coaching and situation, not Luther Burden not being the player that we thought he was. He may be a slot-only guy. I think he could maybe play some Z at the next level. But for the Titans, I think he would be a slot guy. And let me tell you why I think that's super important. So in the past, the Tennessee Titans have not really prioritized the slot position. Think about the Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown Titans. They did not prioritize the slot position. They wanted Kyle Phillips, and they wanted Adam Humphries and guys like that. They're like, we play mostly in double tight ends, 2 wide receiver sets. But now the Titans are going to play a lot more 3 wide receiver sets when you have Brian Callahan's true offense and you have Cam Ward, who's comfortable in the shotgun, and Cam Ward, great at the RPO game. Also, Cam Ward, great at the crossing route game. That's where he lives, crossing routes over the middle of the field, the RPO game, the screen game. So I think the Tennessee Titans, whereas in the past have minimized the slot wide receiver position, I think the Titans are going to be more focused on the slot wide receiver position with Cam Ward at quarterback because of what he does best as a quarterback. He needs a very good slot receiver. And remember, Xavier Restrepo from Miami, who we're going to talk about later in the show, he is a guy who had great success in a 1,000-yard season with Cam Ward because Cam Ward's so connected to his slot wide receiver. So if you have Calvin Ridley, you may be thinking the Titans need that big physical X receiver to go with them. But really, I think the slot wide receiver position is now more important than ever. And if you were to get Luther Burden and Cam Ward together and pair them together for the next 5 to 10 years, what a dynamic duo together. Again, Luther Burden, my number 2 wide receiver in this draft. But I also would be very interested in Emeka Egbuka. Emeka is a guy who I think is the safest wide receiver choice. McMillan, can he get off press? Burden, there's character concerns. Is he going to really try hard behind the scenes? All of that stuff. But with Egbuka, great hands, literally great hands, good size at 6 foot, 202 pounds out of Ohio State. He is a great route runner, knows how to sit in the holes in the zone. He's a smart route runner, setting guys up. He can track the ball. He's a great blocker. He's not a freak athlete. He's not super explosive. He is probably only going to be a possession slot wide receiver at the next level, and we haven't really seen him deal with press a ton. But I'm sorry, Emeka Egbuka is going to be a good NFL player. Reminds me of Chris Godwin a little bit. He's going to be a good NFL player. He's going to be reliable in the slot. Emeka Egbuka is like a first-round talent version of Tyler Boyd. And we know that Tyler Boyd fits well in this system. So if you were to get Burden or Egbuka in a trade up into the 20s, like 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, if those guys start to drop and the Titans were to make a trade up from 35 to get one of the guys, maybe even the 29, 30, 31. If the Titans make a small move up to secure one of these guys before the end of day one, I would love it. I would love that move for the Titans. Now, the last tier 1 wide receiver I want to mention is Matthew Golden. And a lot of people have Matthew Golden as wide receiver 2. Some people have Matthew Golden as wide receiver 1. I am not as high on Matthew Golden out of Texas as some people. I think Matthew Golden is still a tier 1 wide receiver. I think Matthew Golden is going to be a good player. But to me, at 5'11", 193 pounds, without great size, without great athletic ability, doesn't have a big catch radius, isn't a good yards after catch guy, didn't have great production in college, didn't really blow up until the end of his final year. He has great ball skills. That's a fact. He runs good routes. He's great releasing off the line of scrimmage. But at 5'11", 193 pounds, with no elite trait, with size, speed, I think Matthew Golden is being overrated. I would not take him with a top 15 pick. He is an end of the first round, early second round receiver, in my opinion. So if the Titans were able to get Emeka Egbuka or Luther Burden while other teams are taking Matthew Golden ahead of them, run to the podium, make it happen, Titans. But the reality is the Titans will probably be getting a wide receiver on day 2 of the NFL draft, and I go over the best options for them there as well. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by the brand new 2025 Nissan Armada. And the Armada Player of the Week, of course, is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, I'm going to take a look at a draft prospect. I'm going to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy that I believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the Tennessee Titans forward as we look to next season. And this week's Armada clear-cut Player of the Week is Luther Burden, who I just discussed. I think Luther Burden would be an absolutely electric, dynamic pairing with Cam Ward. Slot fades, slot crossers, RPOs, screens. He's going to be so fantastic. Look, I know that he's a speed guy, but Luther Burden's also heavy duty. He's rugged. He conquers the road with capability and confidence. And when it comes to the Nissan Armada, you can go forth and conquer just like Luther Burden. It's clear that my player of the week is out here, again, ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like the new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles, like the Nissan Armada, the Rogue, the Pathfinder. Go find your next big adventure. Make sure that you shop NissanUSA.com. Titans fans, let's continue today's preview of the wide receiver position in the 2025 NFL Draft. I looked at quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends already. We're going to go straight to the offensive line and the defensive line next week. We're going to hit cornerback, safety, linebacker, all of that as well. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But looking at day 2 wide receiver fits. Again, I'd love to see the Titans make a move up the board and secure one of the top tier 1 wide receivers. That would be awesome. But it's more likely that they either stick and pick at 35 and take one of the day 2 wide receivers, or more likely than anything, they trade back at 35, pick up a pick in the 40s or 50s, pick up an additional top 100 pick, and go that route. And regardless of whether they stick at 35 or they drop back a little bit in a trade, I think this pocket of wide receivers is what they should be looking at. It starts with Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I really like Jaden Higgins. He would be, now I talked about how I think the slot wide receiver position is going to be more important than ever to the Tennessee Titans. And I think that they'll prioritize some of these slot wide receivers, and we'll mention them, but Jaden Higgins is not that. Higgins would be your prototypical big physical X receiver. Remember, the X receiver is your number 1 receiver that's on the line of scrimmage, that deals with press coverage, that has to win in isolation situations. Your Z wide receiver, which is what Calvin Ridley is for the Titans, is your wide receiver that's outside, but it's off the line of scrimmage. You put them in motion, you take them across the field, you try to get them open through scheme, not just winning one-on-one in isolation like an X. Then, of course, you guys know what a slot wide receiver is going to be doing, inside routes in the slot. So that's the terminology, and Higgins is an X receiver. 6'4", 215 pounds. He's got great length. He uses his length to, catch the football. He's got great hands. He's a hands catcher, not a body catcher. He does not drop the football. For a guy his size, 6'4", he runs really, really good routes. He can get off press coverage, and he's really, really smart about sitting down in zones in the defense. Like when the defense runs zone coverage, Jaden Higgins is going to find a hole in that zone. So for a guy to be 6'4", 215 pounds, run good routes, get off press coverage, have great hands, be smart to sit down in a zone, it's not super common. Look, he doesn't have great long speed. He's not super fast. He's not going to burn anybody or stack cornerbacks on the outside. He needs to learn how to tempo his routes. Right now, he's a 1-speed route runner, and he's not going to give you a ton after the catch. That's just not going to be who he is. But if you want a big, dominant, physical X receiver who's also a good route runner, you're going to be able to get that with Jaden Higgins. That's why I think he's going to go early on day 2, probably a top 45 pick. His teammate, Jalen Noel from Iowa State, different player entirely. He's more of a smooth secondary Z wide receiver. He's 5'10", 196 pounds. He has great acceleration, great speed, runs routes with great tempo. He's a good vertical route runner as well. He has great hands. But Doesn't have great size, isn't very strong, might be a slot-only guy. Jalen Noel doesn't have a lot of experience getting all press, isn't very good at the catch point. He's not a guy who's he can make people miss, but he's not going to be a guy who runs through contact. So for me, a lot of people like Jalen Noel. I prefer Jaden Higgins, and I'm not as interested in Jalen Noel. I would say I have him a little lower than what most people do. But moving off of those wide receivers from Iowa State, we get to Kyle Williams, who Kyle Williams is a fan favorite for Titans fans. He played at Washington State with Cam Ward in 2023, has a great connection with them. He is not a big wide receiver. He's 5'10", 190 pounds, but he is incredibly versatile. He can play X, Z, slot. I don't think he could play X at the NFL level, but he did all those things in college. So he's a guy who, when you're the Tennessee Titans and you have so many open spots at your wide receiver group, having a guy who can kind of play all the different positions, that's very, very valuable. He is a release wizard. He's so good at getting off the line of scrimmage. His release packages with his feet, whether it be, diamond releases or like power slides or fire foot, all the different names they have for the releases. He's really good at releases at the line of scrimmage, runs routes with great tempo. He really understands how to set up defenders, how to trick defenders, how to get in the spots, how to slow down here and then speed up there. Like, he's so savvy with his route running ability. Great yards after catch. He makes a ton of people. He is one of the best in the nation last year at making people miss and forcing missed tackles. He's really good on screens and contested catches. For a guy who's 5'10", 190 pounds, he's really good at contested catch situations. It's kind of crazy. So again, as a guy who can play in the slot, can play all over the offense, forces missed tackles, yards after catch, screen passes, like, that's the perfect guy to pair with Cam Ward, and they already have history together. So love Kyle Williams as an option for the Titans, but my thing is I would not take Kyle Williams flat at 35. I think that's just a little too early. I'd prefer to drop back into the mid-40s to take a guy like Kyle Williams because he's not an elite athlete. He doesn't have great acceleration. He doesn't really attack the ball in the air. That's not really what he's going to do at 5'10", 190. So there are some drawbacks as well. Another guy who I really like is Jack Beck from TCU, 6'1", 214. So a bigger bodied guy who's physical and he's versatile. X, Z, slot. He could be a slot guy. A lot of people have compared him to like Cooper Kupp, but I think that might just be because he's a white guy who runs routes pretty good. But he's got great size, strong, great hands. Like, this dude does not drop the ball, period. Again, he's versatile in his positional alignment on the offense. Great route craft. Another guy who can really set you up, find the blind spots of the cornerback, sit down, tempo his routes to sit in the holes. He knows when to lean, when to use his head fakes, all that different stuff. Really good route craft. Great at finding holes in the zone. Really good against press coverage. Really physical. Great in contested catch situations. And he's a very good blocker. I like Jack Beck as a guy in the 50s. Maybe 50 to 60, somewhere in there. If the Titans drop to that level, I would love to take him in that range. But he does not have great speed. He's more of a one-speed guy who doesn't tempo his speed enough in his routes. And for a guy who's 6'1", doesn't really have a great catch radius. And you would expect a little bit better catch reaction from a guy his size. But I think Beck is a guy who does make a ton of sense for the Titans as another versatile, reliable player. Jalen Royals is a player I know a lot of people are fond of out of Utah State, 6 foot, 205. He's kind of a speed guy, but he did have a foot injury in the middle of the season for Utah State. That is something that has to be considered, but he's very fast. He gets off press coverage well. Great focus, great control of his body. He really adjusts to the ball well. Really good against zone coverage, but he's small. He doesn't have long arms. He's not strong. He had the injury. I'm sorry, but for a guy who's 6 foot, 200 pounds, Jalen Royals is just built a little too slim for me, and I'm not as interested in him as maybe some other people. Now, Alec Iomanner is a guy that I do like very much. We're getting into, to me, we're talking about guys who could go anywhere from 55 to 80 at this point. But Alec Iomanner out of Stanford, 6'1", 207. He would be a versatile X wide receiver. Not quite super physical like some of these other guys, like a Jaden Higgins as an X, but he can be a versatile X receiver who gives you a little bit more. 6'1", 207, good size, long arms, and he uses them to win, man. He is awesome in contested catch situations. Like, Io Manor has some elite contested catch ability. He was awesome against Travis Hunter, which is something you got to think about. He's a great blocker. He runs routes pretty well. He can get off press. I think Io Manor is a great option for the Titans if they were to trade back to, 45 to 70, somewhere in there, and he's available. I think that would be great. Look, he's not a super explosive athlete, doesn't have great long speed, not going to give you much after the catch, and there are some drops. But Io Manor is a guy who is going to be better in the NFL than he was in Stanford in that offense in college. So I think he's a pretty solid player. Next, we're getting into a lower tier. To me, the next few guys we're going to discuss right now are a lower tier. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, 6'2", 207. To me, he's a developmental X receiver because he's got great size, great strength. He runs routes pretty good. But coming from Ole Miss, it's like Tennessee. You guys who watch Tennessee, you got to admit, it's a gimmick offense. You can't trust a Tennessee wide receiver. We saw it with Jalen Hyatt. Cedric Tillman is pretty solid for the Browns. But like a lot of these wide receivers coming out of Tennessee, coming out of Ole Miss, you just don't know if they're legit receivers because they don't do a lot of NFL stuff. They just run these vertical routes with a ton of separation and space created. But Trey Harris, again, size, strength, runs good routes that he is asked to run, but his route tree super limited at Ole Miss. He's not that explosive. No experience against press. Not good in contested catch situations. So you'd really have to develop him and say, hey, he has good physical tools. We're going to develop him. But I got to give credit to my guy, Easton Freeze. You can't trust skill players coming out of Ole Miss. You just can't. Like, the evaluation's too hard. Now, another guy who I really like, but things got more complicated, is Isaiah Bond out of Texas. He is your quintessential dynamic slot receiver. Acceleration, speed, change of direction, great coordination, really adjusts to the ball, does not drop the football either. But not great size, not great strength. He's 5'10", 185 pounds. Not great in contested catch situations, like if there's contact on him. Can't get off press. Does not block at all. And here's the thing. He was supposed to be a number one wide receiver in college, and he just never was that. He never was that ever at any point in time. So you got to wonder. And now, right before I started recording, he turned himself in for a potential sexual assault situation with the police. He says he's innocent, but I mean, still something that will have to be vetted. All right, moving quickly. Last couple of guys in this tier, and we're talking about, I would only take these guys 80 to 100. Okay? But the next guy I want to mention is Savion Williams. Now, Williams has some Deebo Samuel to his game. Like, that's the style of player he is. He played a little bit of running back at TCU, played wide receiver as well. 6'3", 227 pounds. He's kind of developmental gadget guy. I think he could potentially be an X wide receiver, but, he's got the size and build for it. But can he refine his game enough to be more than a gadget guy and be a real wide receiver? He's super long, big body, super explosive too, man. 6'3", 227 and move the way that Savion Williams does. Crazy. Like, he is a running back when it comes to yards after catch. So good against man coverage because he's just so big and so explosive. It's hard to cover him with a single guy, period. And he showed some crazy contested catch ability. Like, crazy contested catch situations. Hasn't been a lot of experience in it, but again, when you say that he could be a dominant X receiver, it's because his contested catch ability, his size with his length, crazy. He may get drafted way higher than 80 to 100 because he's just got so much potential. But man, he drops the football, does not have a diverse route tree, didn't do crap in college until he was a fifth-year senior. So you got to wonder about that. But with that in mind, The Titans have to take one of these wide receivers we just talked about. Xavier Restrepo is the last guy. Now, we're looking at pick 103. Restrepo should probably go later than 103, but his connection with Cam Ward, if he's there at 103, you might as well just take him and keep that rolling. Restrepo, 5'9", 209. He's just a reliable slot wide receiver, savvy, good route runner, very productive, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, incredible hands, does not drop the ball, decent yards after catch ability. He's just small. He's slow. He doesn't get off press. He doesn't beat man coverage. So that's why he's going to drop later in the draft. But we get late enough, just pair him back up with Cam Ward, and he'll get the best out of him. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We went over my top tier options in the current report that the Titans may be looking to trade up. We went over my day 2 options. The Tennessee Titans have to leave the NFL draft with one of my tier 1 or tier 2 options. The wide receivers that I have mentioned so far in the show, if the Titans do not leave the NFL draft with one of those guys, I am going to consider it quite the failure. They have to. But when you look at wide receivers on day 3 that I think could pair well, the Titans need to take 2 wide receivers. All right. They need to take one in the top 100 picks who can actually contribute and help the team this year. And then they need to take a developmental guy on day 3 that can also play special teams. Think about Racey McMath, Colton Dow, Jaquan Jackson. Like that's the kind of player you need. All right. So some players that I think make a ton of sense on day 3. At the top of the list is Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, 6'2", 196. He's a versatile, balanced receiver. I think he could play across different positions, and he has a versatile skill set. Smooth. He's fast. He runs good routes. Yards after catch. He can make guys miss. Doesn't drop the football, but he wasn't asked to run a diverse route tree at Colorado State, so you're projecting him at the next level, saying that he can run more routes than he has run. He does not play with physical. Think 6'2", 196. He's super slim, and he had a bad knee injury in 2024, missed most of the season. What's that like? Like, I like what Torrey Horton brings to the table, but you got to check those boxes and make sure that he doesn't get hurt. Speaking of being slim, Tez Johnson from Oregon, 5'9", 156 pounds. Let me say this to you. No. I'm going to say no to Tez Johnson. He is tiny. It's like Tutu Atwell is what it reminds me of. 155 pounds soaking wet. No way, man. No way. He is fast, but he is small. And any contact whatsoever is going to ruin his ability to help. So you're really going to have to. It's like Troy Franklin from last year, but even smaller and not as good. Ty Felton out of Maryland is an interesting player. 6'1", 188 pounds. Another guy, rail thin, okay? But he has great speed and could be an outside receiver to take the top off the defense. Good route speed, like he runs his routes very fast and very intense. He's got yards after catch ability. He can make guys miss. And he can stack cornerbacks, which means eat up the space between you and get around them vertically. And he's really good at slowing down and sitting down. Now, again, he's thin. He's not going to be good in contested catch situations. He's not going to be good through contact. And he has drop issues, especially when he gets hit. He has drop issues. So his issue is he's so thin, and him being that thin shows up in all the other problems with his tape. So that's probably why we're talking about day 3. Pat Bryant out of Illinois is a guy that I'm very interested in. 6'2", 204 pounds. He is a physical X receiver. I like Pat Bryant a lot on day 3. He's good at tracking deep balls. He's so good at running deep routes. He is a vertical X receiver. He can get off press. He runs good routes. He does not drop the football. He's a willing blocker. He's just slim. Against the better teams last year, he had his worst games. Doesn't really have great burst off the line of scrimmage, and you wonder if he's going to be able to get off a press because of that. He got off press well at college, But is he going to be able to do it at the NFL level without that burst off the line of scrimmage? I don't know. We'll see. But Pat Bryant out of Illinois, 6'2", 200 pounds, would be a great like if the Titans were to get Emeka Egbuka or Luther Burden, who are slot guys, and then you pair that up with, or you get Kyle Williams in the second round, and you pair that up with Pat Bryant in the 5th or 6th round, now you got a slot, you got an X. I would love that pairing. Nick Nash is another guy who's a big physical player, 6'2", 203 pounds, balanced player, has great production. He's like an all-time producer at the college football level. Really good catch radius as well. He can adjust. He can jump up and catch the ball. He makes good plays on the football. But he might be a slot only. He played most of the time in the slot. He really beat up on bad football teams when it comes to his production. He's not explosive, and he doesn't do good against man coverage. So super productive, can adjust, but at the NFL level, even being good at adjusting to the football, is that going to be good enough for him to win? That's why he's probably a day 3. Dante Thornton, Tennessee, 6'4", 205. I call him a gravity X receiver because he's just get downfield and open things up. He's got size, he's got speed. But again, like I talked about with Trey Harris, a guy coming out of Tennessee, you cannot trust their skill position players right now. 34 targets. He doesn't get the ball a lot. Doesn't have good change of direction. Not good yards after the catch. Doesn't have great hands. Like, he's just big and fast. It's Racey McMath all over again. Now, if he can come in and help on special teams and develop as a wide receiver, then great. But he's probably not going to help you much as a wide receiver in year 1. Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas is another guy that I would be very interested in. To me, he's almost like a tight end. He's almost like a Mike Gesicki. All right. 6'3", 215. So big-bodied guy. Had incredible testing numbers. Good change of direction. He's good at setting up his routes. Doesn't drop the football. He's good in contested catch situations at 6'3". But he didn't really have any production in college. He's never really shown the ability to consistently beat man coverage. Again, he might just be a big slot receiver, which is almost like a big tight end. So day 3, I'll take it. But some people are like, I really like Isaac Tesla. I'd take him. I'm not taking Isaac Tesla with the first 4 rounds. I'm not doing that. Last guy that I want to mention in this group is Ricky White, UNLV, 6'1", 184. He's like a secondary deep threat guy. I think he could be like a Z wide receiver or an X wide receiver that runs vertically very often, but is your secondary option within the offense as a wide receiver. He makes huge plays all the time. Like, the guy just makes a ton of big plays all the time. Great speed, great acceleration, good with the ball in his hands. He can track the deep ball down the field. Like, he's going to make explosive plays. But he's slim. And will he be able to deal with press? Physical corners might give him trouble at the NFL level. He's not good at the catch point, so he struggles with physicality, whether it's line of scrimmage or catch point. And when I say catch point, I mean when the ball arrives and you jump up to get it. Okay? He had drop problems. He's not a good route runner, so you'd really have to clean up some of the other stuff and then hope that he can continue to give you the big plays with the additional physicality of the NFL level. But look, there are some other names that could be a possibility on day 3. Isaiah Nayer, Dominic Lovett out of Georgia, Brew McCoy out of Tennessee, Jimmy Horn Jr. and LaJohntay Wester out of Colorado, Ja'Cory Brooks, a big physical player who can play on special teams from Louisville, Jacoby George out of Miami is a guy, Andrew Armstrong, who I think the Titans met with virtually, according to Justin Mello, another guy out of Arkansas. So listen, I have said 31 wide receiver names on today's show. Like, the odds are that the Tennessee Titans leave with 2 of these players. Also, the last thing I want to say is, if you're somebody who's going to tag me on social media and say, oh, you didn't mention this guy that I like, I mentioned 31 players. It's been 35 minutes. How much time do we have? That's 31 wide receivers in 35 minutes. All right. We're going to pick up next week with the offensive line. We're going to hit the defensive line, do the entire defense, and the draft, less than 2 weeks, folks. We have made it. But with that being said, let me know your favorite draft wide receivers down below or hit me up on Twitter at TicTacTitans. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.